up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk Podcast. Phil Perry will be along in just a second. Just got a text. It's inclement weather out there. And Phil said, Tom, I'm pulling in now. That's what Phil said. Anyway, so while we wait for Phil, because we have a finite amount of time on our window here on Zoom before there's like a Celtics thing coming on, let's maximize it. Jakobi Meyers signs with the Las Vegas Raiders, reported $33 million. Seems like there's some wiggle room there. The Raiders can jump out of that deal after 1 year. But here's the upshot, and here's what I know after speaking with folks close to the situation. The Raiders became involved after they understood that there was only one other team involved at that point who had made a serious offer. And that offer was so low that the Raiders felt as if they would be doing themselves a disservice if they didn't get in on it. Was not able to confirm that the Patriots were actually in on Meyers at all. As far as the folks I spoke to, there was just one of the team that they knew of that was involved. But the upshot of it is that Jakobi Meyers goes on for $11 million a year to become a wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders. So in a 24-hour period, the Patriots say goodbye to Jonnu Smith and they say goodbye to Jakobi Meyers. One guy overpaid, and you understand why they finally pushed away from the table. One guy underpaid and highly productive for 4 seasons, who in the end could have been had for a hell of a lot less than was forecast. I believed that Jakobi Meyers would come in around $11 or $12 million a year. The franchise tag was 18. Mike Reese reported on Sunday that he was feeling that $15 million might be what Jakobi Meyers was requesting, but it's no huge shock that a nice, I underscore nice, wide receiver only commands $11 million on the market. And really, with a depressed market that only has one other team sniffing for his services, I think he's lucky to get 11. But why weren't the Patriots asking or involved if indeed they weren't? As it was put to me, if you're looking for a tough, dependable, durable player who's productive and football means a lot to him, well, Jakobi Meyers checks every single box. The only thing he doesn't check, speed. Mac Jones, obviously, by comments that he made last fall, toward the end of the season, actually, we talked about free agency and Jakobi Meyers with him, was a huge Jakobi Meyers believer. So this leaves us a little bit with wonderment as to what the Patriots really consider value. For instance, just listen to this for a quick second. It's some math. Jonnu Smith made $27 million of that 4-year, $50 million contract he signed with the Patriots. He played 949 snaps, caught 55 passes, and scored 1 touchdown. So for $27 million, that breaks down to $28,451 per snap, $490,909.09 per catch, and $27 million per touchdown. In 4 seasons, the Patriots paid Meyers $6,1,600. He played 2,716 snaps, caught 235 passes, scored 8 touchdowns. That breaks down to, for Jakobi Meyers, $2,215 per snap, $25,600 per catch, as opposed to $490,000, $500,000, and $750,000 per touchdown, as opposed to $27 million for Jonnu. I don't blame them for the Patriots. I don't blame the Patriots for saying, hey, we miscalculated, we're getting the hell out of this. But I do blame the Patriots for not anteing up for a guy who, if they just gave him the same friggin' contract as the Raiders are giving him, would have gotten 7 years service for $39 million out of him. Isn't the devil you know, which Jakobi Meyers is, better than the devil that you don't know? Because the Patriots keep wading in and grabbing guys in a conga line of unproductive wide receivers and pass catchers that marches through, grabs the cash, and moves on out. Mohamed Sanu, Antonio Brown, N'Keal Harry, Nelson Aguilar, Devin Asiasi, Dalton Keene, Jonnu Smith, to name just 7 off the top of my head when I was writing this column that I wrote here, that I'm reading from. If you got one that you developed and you know what you got when you have them, shouldn't you keep them around? For God's sake. I think Phil's in the building now. Give me 20 seconds. There's Phil. We had to wait about 45 seconds for him to finish chewing the sandwich that he had in his mouth, but now he's up and live.
Listen,
Phil?
it's a busy time, okay? You got to find time to eat at some point.
You do. The devil you know better than the devil you don't know. That's the upshot of what I'm trying to express with Jakobi Meyers. Jonnu Smith was the devil the Patriots didn't know, and then they burned in the Hades of Jonnu for 2 years, watching him stumble, bumble, and parade his way around for 58 catches in 2 seasons. Meanwhile, you got a guy who produces for you. Make it make sense, Phil. Make it make sense.
I can't make it make sense. This is essentially it's a 1-year deal and then we'll see kind of contract with Jakobi Meyers and the Raiders. He's going to get $11 million in the first year, and then they can get out of it if they want to. I don't know why they would. It's very good value.
Do you know where it is? Do you know where it lands? Do you know where it lands on the wide receiver chart? 27th.
Yeah.
27th. $11 million a year annual is 27th, which is about where Jakobi Meyers ought to be.
But for 1 year, he's a good number 2.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And so you're right. I mean, I'm just a little perplexed at the length of the deal or the amount of guarantees that are actually in there. And I'm perplexed by the Patriots seeming lack of competitiveness when it comes to keeping the player, because would they have been able to, understanding how this thing looks now, Tom, would they have been able to keep Jakobi Meyers if they just gave him the Nelson Aguilar contract, which at least was, I believe it was $22 million over 2 years.
Yep.
Not that it was all fully guaranteed or anything, but
I think 15 was guaranteed.
Like that might've got it done, given how this thing looks in Vegas. And I know the taxes are different and all that, and maybe he just wanted to move on. Part of him wanted to move on. But it's really hard to wrap your head around the fact that this team needed to get better at receiver. Now they've lost their best guy, and they're going to have to kind of scratch to get back to where they were last year, which was not good enough.
Yeah, and the bigger point isn't that, hey, Jakobi Meyers left, because we all realized that was a very strong possibility because he's had good years. But to see him leave for the amount that he left for is a horse of a different color, shall we say. So what is the plan if you're not going to be aggressive with a player that you knew was very productive in your system, aggressive enough to compete for $11 million a year, aggressive enough, as far as I know, we may hear differently come the owners' meetings in a week or two, when we talk to Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick. But if you didn't ask to be dealt a hand in that particular, what do you get dealt? Cards? See, I don't play cards, so I really shouldn't use that metaphor. Sure, I'll take that one back. If you didn't sit down at the table and ask to be dealt some cards in Jakobi Meyers poker, then I don't know why you're even in the casino.
So confused.
Seriously. They got to get, what are they going to do? I mean, again, of course they're going to do something. Zay Flowers is going to come in. They're going to work some frickin' trade, and everyone's going to cluck. Well, yeah, you guys can really say that Tuesday about 24 hours before free agency.
Do you feel that way? You feel that way? There's going to be a trade and they're going to draft a guy in the first round?
Oh, I don't know if they're going to do both. What are you, like Adam Jones? Just jump on everything I say like it's gospel? No, they're going to do something. They're not going to sit there with their thumb up their ass.
Well, what are they going to do?
And profane.
I mean, it's just the difficult thing about projecting this now is, at least in free agency, you have some control, right? The market is what the market is, but you decide whether or not you want to pay what's necessary to acquire a certain player. In a trade, there's a lot of different variables involved. The primary one being that you have to get the other team to agree to the trade, but then there are other teams that are involved that could outspend you, same way in free agency. Then in the draft, again, who falls to you is out of your control.
Yep. Free
This was
agency
the
is something,
easiest.
you're right.
This was the easiest way to go into the next year with a relatively functional receiver room, was to re-sign this guy at a pretty low cost. And now that opportunity has come and gone. So there's no guarantee they're better than what they have right now at this position as we stand here today. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, then you're right. Tyquan Thornton, Kendrick Bourne, and Devontae Parker are your wide receivers of note. Trey Nixon, you can mention. Phil, am I missing anybody else? That's basically it.
That's basically it.
And I like Kendrick Bourne. And on
Marcus
any given,
Jones. You want to put Marcus Jones on the
no,
receiver?
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because the Patriots, spent all their time trying to get him ready to go at corner last year when they had 14 corners and they had no pace back. Spend the damn time getting him ready at pace back. Maybe it's all for Austin Eckler. Anyway, you can't have $30 million worth of cap space heading toward free agency and not be prepared to do something. So there's going to be a Caleb McGarry plucked. They're going to trade Kendrick Bourne and a fifth for Justin Jefferson. I don't know what they're going to do, Phil, but you got too much cap space. They're going to do something.
Listen, here's what I could see being like a realistic best case scenario as we sit here right now at 2:47 on Tuesday, guy. They could sign Caleb McGarry. You got a starting right tackle.
Atlanta. There you go.
Good for you. That's great. You could even sign a starting caliber outside the numbers type of cornerback in a man heavy system like a Rock Yassin. Okay. He's a starting level player when healthy to me. So that's two boxes checked. You could try to swing a trade again. Who knows if these guys are available. Hopkins, it seems like, is available. Maybe you have to trade a second round pick for him. Jerry Jeudy might be available. Who knows?
Adam Thielen's still out there.
I would put him in a tier below those guys, but yeah.
Would you put him in a tier above Jakobi Meyers?
No.
Yeah, me neither. If he was, he's definitely within hailing distance.
Oh yeah. I mean, that'll be interesting to see how much he gets. I mean, is he playing on a 1-year deal too? Is it a 1 year and 8, 1 and 9? I don't know. These things are feasible, and then you could draft a receiver in the first round. Those are that all certainly could happen. And then we would look at the Myers non-signing and we would say no big deal. But if this is the room next year at that position, that's going to be hard, I think, for fans to swallow. I would imagine it would be hard for Mac Jones to swallow, wouldn't you?
What if they get Braxton Berrios and Slade Bolden?
See, now you are having fun at our listeners' expense is how I feel.
Not. They understand. They understand what an asshole I am on this stuff. Look, to me, just what is so incongruous is, again, when we're talking about value in the Patriots, and they've always been so much about value, since Tom Brady has left, they're scattershot. They are, to date myself, Barney Fife, deputy, Mayberry PD on the Andy Griffith Show. They can't shoot straight. They don't know what they want to be. They don't know what they want to do. 2020, okay, reset year, fine. They did that. And then they come out and they shot every bird out of the sky in free agency, brought them down into the house, and the only ones that were worth keeping were Judon and Henry. Kendrick Bourne halfway, certainly not Nelson Aguilar, certainly not Jonnu Smith. And the price of those, the value lost on those players was extreme. Now you can look at the value guys like David Andrews that they've cashed in on, and JC Jackson for a period of time, and Myers, and said, well, that's value. But when you have a chance to retain them at reasonable prices, that's good. So if you say, hey, the Patriots have pushed away from the table on JC Jackson, they pushed away from the table on Trey Flowers, and they did the same thing with Malcolm Butler, and every time they were right. Those were top of the market players. Those were 5-year, $80 million players in the case of JC Jackson, who I fully supported the Patriots saying, no, thanks, you're not that good. And they've been proven right, sadly, because there's an injury involved, but they're going to be proven right on that. Same thing with Trey Flowers. It's the value. I think there's a massive disconnect between real value as they have always defined it and what they do. For instance, we're looking at Mac Jones, and if the Patriots are entertaining in any way the idea that they're going to bring in Lamar Jackson for $42 million a year, and we'll get to Lamar in a hot second, but that's not talking about value, going from a $2 million salaried quarterback with a $4 million cap hit to a $40 million quarterback and giving up 2 draft picks to do it. Phil, does value even matter anymore, Phil? Phil, does value matter?
I think it's easy to be a value-based organization when you understand that you have a significant margin for error with the talent that you fill your roster out with. They had that for a long, long time because they had the greatest quarterback of all time. And they had other Hall of Fame players that were on the roster that they just don't have right now. You know, we always talk about Tom Brady, but they also had Rob Gronkowski. They also had, Stephon Gilmore, and they also
look at 2016. They had Brady on a good deal in 2016. They had cap space. So what did they do? They found good players. Same thing in 2014. You got Revis in 2014. You got LaFell. 2016. Was that the Gilmore year? Yes. Yeah.
2017 was the Gilmore year, but yeah.
But you went and got Chris Long, and for what it was worth, what's the white guy there, Shea, linebacker?
McClellan.
That's right. You could spend and know that even if we these up, we're still going to win 12 games.
Yeah, that's a great point. I was sort of looking at it the other way. I was sort of looking at it saying, you don't have, because you don't have the Brady factor on your roster right now, you might need to overcompensate and add some talent and take more risks adding talent to your roster. You're saying you could take those risks because you're going to be good no matter what. Yeah, I guess I'm saying you might not be good, period, if you don't take those risks now.
Oh, now, yeah.
Because what's on the roster now isn't enough. It's not even close to what you had in those years.
Yeah, no one's like, say the Patriots spent all that money on Jonnu Smith when Brady was here, and he comes in and he does ask for 2 years. Nice guy, and I enjoyed the hell out of him, and I'm sure that somebody can unlock him, but he does nothing. Well, if the Patriots still win 12 games and go to the playoffs, and Jonnu Smith is a non-factor, even with Brady here, there's not as much gnashing of teeth as there is if you bring him in, he does nothing, and you let him go. And I think that the gnashing of teeth is actually mitigated by the fact that they cut their losses. Another year at Jonnu with 28 catches, I think people would have been like, "What?" It would have hit critical mass. They're smart to get out on it. I don't blame them for that. It's just the two things in lockstep. Bad value misses on Aguilar to a degree born because you're not using him and playing him correctly. Jonnu Smith, Isaiah Wynn, which has to be cited as a primary one, $10 million guaranteed for a guy who was not even replacement level. If you're going to make all those mistakes, whether it be because you miscalculated, you didn't coach them well enough, or the offense wasn't suited for them, if you're going to make all those mistakes, well, don't you want to stick with the thing that works when you have a chance to keep the thing that works around, i.e. Meyers? That's the point I'm making. Keep the that works. Don't put it in the dumpster or let somebody else take it off your hands.
I agree, because, it's not like there's even if you have this grand plan of, well, we're going to trade for Judy and then we're going to draft, Quentin Johnson. And so that, like, number one, there's no way you can predict that you're going to actually be able to do that. But number two, there's risk in those moves too. So, for a team that is seemingly risk averse sometimes, wouldn't it be the most risk averse thing to bring back a guy like Meyers on a year-to-year deal that's not going to cost you very much at a very expensive position, and a guy who seems to have a pretty good idea of how your quarterback works and how to get the most out of him? I know we actually have to go here, I think, in a few minutes, Tom, but I just want to ask you, what do you think are the Patriots' goals for this year? Because I was thinking about that earlier, and the way they are building, it doesn't scream to me that the goal is to win a Super Bowl. I just don't know how they want to get, like, are they still in the rebuild phase? Are they looking at 2024 and 2025?
And that's what I was concerned about, is that 2022 was screwed up even further than we really even give it credit for. that they again have to run through an entire season to figure out how good Mac Jones is in year 3, as opposed to finding out in year 2. Find out what their identity is going to be with Bill O'Brien. They have to reconsider whether or not they can run wide zone or not. They have to figure out whether they can actually block up front and on when who needs to be extended or not. Can David Andrews still play the position? There are people at the positions that I think are fine to trot out there, but we don't know how good they are or not good they are because last year was such a trash pile. Ironically, and I've had former coaches on the Patriots say this to me, Bill is more secure making moves on defense. And I really think the Jonathan Jones decision speaks to that. Look, if I'm going to spend $10 million a year on a player, and it's going to be 26-year-old Jakobi Meyers or 29-year-old Jonathan Jones, one guy's durable and one guy's not, well, I'm helping my defense. At least I know what Jonathan Jones will do. He's not really going to be interdependent on whether or not Connor McDermott is my starting right tackle or not. So I'll take Jonathan Jones and take my chances finding a suitable replacement for Jakobi Meyers. But that's not a sure thing. And that doesn't satiate the disappointment and, urge to win that Robert Kraft seems to have. I wonder too, before we jump out of here, Phil, if you look at Lamar Jackson, excellent that he finally got out today on Twitter when it was reported that he turned down a $200 million guaranteed offer from the Ravens by Adam Schefter. Jackson fired back with, it was 3 and 133. So basically $41 million a year guaranteed. And I take that two ways. One, I'm glad he shared it. Two, that sounds about right. I'd take it. I mean, of course I'd take it, but if I were Lamar Jackson, I'd think long and hard about it. $41 million a year guaranteed. So what if it's 3 years? You're 26. You think you should be given that level of security because you're still going to be good at 29? Well, then bet on yourself. Take the 3 and 33 and then go cash in again on another deal at 29. Phil, thoughts?
Yeah, and Schefter sort of fired back after Lamar's tweet.
Oh, I didn't see it. What did he say?
Well, because he said, well, yeah, it was, I guess, 133 fully guaranteed, but it was 175 essentially guaranteed once you got to certain markers. And then there was even some more down the line in that contract that would have made it $200 million guaranteed, but which I guess led to his initial report. I don't blame Lamar for trying to get to the market to see if he could get more than that. Based on the fact that, I mean, Deshaun Watson got $100 million more fully guaranteed. He got 230 fully guaranteed. Lamar gets 133 and he's looking at it and saying, I mean, it's great. It's great. Guys, it's a lot of money. It's great. It's just, I'm very similar to this other guy and he's got a lot of issues and it's really not close to that. So I don't blame him. I keep coming back to like I just wonder if like his ownership is everybody on the same page? Is ownership and Bill, are they on the same page?
Yeah,
in terms of what just to get back to that.
Yeah.
What are they after this year? Because if they were after the playoffs, adding talent and adding it early we've seen it with the Patriots, give you that 1 year bump to get into the playoffs. And then you're in, and then anything can happen. And maybe you win a game. And maybe that's enough to satiate Robert Kraft. But is Bill looking at it as he's always looked at his team and said, well, no, I need a team for this year, but I also need a team for 5 years from now. And I don't want to do anything that's going to hamper me well down the line, which there's of course there's merit in that as well. Right. It feels like it's a more urgent situation given that they haven't been to the playoffs in a while. And I was expecting a more urgent sort of legal tampering period these last 2 days.
It comes down to this. We got to jump out before Casey loses her mind, but $32 million or so in cap space right now. And the pressure is certainly on Bill to go and spend it. But I think by extension too, the pressure is on Robert Kraft through the fans who believe that he's the one who controls the purse strings and won't let Bill spend. I don't think that's the case. I think Bill pretty much he's making $25-30 million a year, Bill is. I don't think he's real tight with the dough. Maybe I'm wrong. Be that as it may. Why would Bill Belichick mention that we're one of the lowest spending teams in the NFL? See, these are the little things going on, that things aren't said by happenstance. And the detail inside Bill Belichick's comment about how little the Patriots have spent since 2020 or 2019 shows that was with forethought broached. What's the point? Was it, hey, I'm a pretty economically responsible guy? Was that a, hey, if my guy had let me spend more, maybe things would look different, but he doesn't? I can't imagine that would be the case. Not pulling down more than any coach in professional sports or college sports. And not after the spending free of $172 million in guaranteed money last year. So what was the point of that? Why would he say that? And then why and who is deciding to cause a no buzz team to have a no buzz start to free agency? Is it Bill? Is it Bob? Is it the two of them? I don't know. You don't either. That's why it's a great question you posed. Why? Why?
I do think Robert probably isn't like really heavily involved in the free agent stuff, unless there's a big guaranteed figure that's on the table for them to start talking about. I don't think he's in the office saying, let's go get that guy. Let's go get that guy. I think he kind of lets
100% not.
Bill Belichick go about it. And so, to me, it's an owner who wants to win right now. And it's a coach who, again, there's merit in this. And it's respectable in many ways that he's a guy who's in his 70s right now. And it doesn't look like he's going all in to win right now, because maybe he feels like he needs to set this team up to be in a better position multiple years down the road than would be the case if he were to spend an obscene amount of money this offseason.
I do want to interject. That's something that the Crafts have always believed and appreciated about Bill Belichick. In contrast to Bill Parcells, who didn't care what it looked like when he walked away from an organization in their minds. Bill has that, I want to leave this place better than I found it feeling. It's impossible to do. Well, actually, he's already done it, but they don't think that they'll leave him in a burning building and run out into the sidewalk and say, see ya. So I can see that, but still it's this confluence of you got to spend to get better. Do they not see guys worth spending on? And that's fair too. Do they not know enough about the players they already have on their own roster? I suspect that's a bit of it, but I don't like seeing Jakobi Meyers playing someplace else. I don't mind Jonnu Smith leaving, but the two things in conjunction irk me.
I don't think you're alone in that.
That's enough for today.
Okay.